Okay. Well, so I was was an interesting chapter. A lot of again, a lot of history.
Right.
A
Exactly.
lot of
Yes, ma'am.
foretelling.
Yeah.
In how I was understand it was this was God's way of setting us up for what's to come.
Mhm.
That Antiochus Epiphanes, which means Epiphanes means glorious, and the Jewish people like to had called him a kind of a parody of Epimanes, which meant madman or crazy.
Uh-huh.
Because he was not a good guy.
Uh-huh.
But this was God's way of saying Antiochus is we've seen it here, all the things that he did, as he describes in chapter 8, of what's to come when the end comes, when the Antichrist, like prepping us for the Antichrist, or whatever Antichrist means. So yeah, that's what I took from it. So yeah, so let's, what did you guys think? What did you think, Pam?
Well, I found the similarities between the 7 and the 8,
Yes.
different animals, but the same exact kinds of things.
Yes.
The goats and the leopard and the whatever. And now I have to go back and look, but exactly the same kind of dream. So I had to look up. I guess he had that in the dream he had in 8 was 2 years later than the one he had in 7. Because I thought, well, which one came first? Because they seem so similar.
Right. And again, these things were the dream came to Daniel. One said it was 100 years before it happened, or hundreds of years. I'm not sure, but it was a long time before it happened. And so the scholars that look at the Bible as, okay, let's look at this as, they're convinced that because it was so precise, and so everything was just so on point, there's no way that Daniel wrote this. It had to be done after those things happened. And others disagree, that say no, he was able to prophesy what was going to happen because God gave him this dream.
Yeah.
That's why I heard it. These things happened, more or less after they were like close to 300 years after the return of the Jews from Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
But the similarities is that it's an eschatology. It's a talk about the end times, and Pam, I picked up on the same thing. It with the commentary that I had, that Daniel 8 is another interpretation of Daniel 7. Probably embellishes it a little bit more, actually. But the whole thing is it talks about, this is the eschatology. This is the talks about the end times, and that's something that is, that we are still dealing with on a continuing basis. But this is their interpretation of what's going to happen at the end times. These things are going to occur. So, we can play with them in history and so forth, but the end times are still a subject that's really important. We think about it on a continuous basis.
Right. I mean, it's because it's prepping us, he's preparing us for, I've given you what it's going to look like. This is how was it described in the video that I watched, was the Antiochus was the preview, or the what is it when you see a movie, the trailer of what's going to happen when this person comes, who is described as, the world will see this leader as a winner. He will oppose God and his people at every level. every level, just the way that Antiochus did in chapter 8, where he desecrated the altar with sacrificing a pig.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how could you do that?
Yeah.
And then, where was it? Jesus attended in John 10:22. Jesus attended the Feast of Dedication, which is known as Hanukkah, which was meaning it was the cleansing of the temple after Antiochus.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How interesting.
Mhm.
The cleansing of the temple. Wow.
Yeah, we heard about the feast of all these other things, but the Feast of the Dedication, I was like, "Ooh, I got to write this down." And then it talked about, the cleansing of the temple after Antiochus, and they had to wait for a while.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
again, in his time,
Yeah.
and there's purpose to all of this. And I mean, I'm so reluctant to read the last Revelation, because it's just so scary to me.
Sure.
It brings me back to childhood, Antichrist and things like that. Anytime, I mean, I've watched The Omen. I'm always praying. I know I love you, Jesus. I'm just trying to understand,
Sure.
but I'm very careful about it. There's some movies where I feel like it's the devil trying to get in, and I'm like, I got the armor of God on me. I'm just looking at this, as for whatever reason. But I have that same response towards Revelation, but Daniel's sort of the Old Testament's Revelation.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. In many ways it is, because there's all this symbolism there. There's these,
Yes.
has a vision, and there's these
Right.
serpents, and there's these, rams and goats and all
The
this.
goats, right.
Yeah.
And Jesus loves us so much that he's like, I gave this to you thousands of years ago.
Right.
Like, how much more warning do you need?
Yeah.
You just don't, I trust me. I'm trying to give you an out here. And he did, by bringing Jesus to us,
Sure.
So, but when he comes the second time, where is it? It will be the worst time that we have ever seen. That is when Jesus will return. And then I think about, we've seen a lot of hard times. We've read a lot about a lot of hard times. I mean, I don't, it's going to have to be really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But he's going to go after the Jewish community again, this Antichrist. He's going to go after Christians. He's going to go after Israel. He's going to desecrate the altar again. He's going to do the same thing that Antiochus did, except at a much grandiose and more grandiose level.
Yeah.
And then that's when Jesus is coming, and hopefully I'll be in the grave somewhere with a nice, roses on my, hopefully. But,
Yeah.
but
Do you think Antiochus, I can't say his name, but whoever, do you think that what he was doing was at that time worldwide? I mean, it seemed to me it was,
Mhm.
Yes, it was what the world was then,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would
So
say let's call it the civilized world,
So who's
right? I mean, he was
almost scary.
He was the out of the four generals of Alexander the Great.
Yeah,
he was the one that stuck out the most. And I mean, he gave himself that last epiphany, epiphanies. He gave himself that name, meaning glorious. And his name is Antiochus, but you can call me this because I'm so wonderful.
Yeah.
So
and that's what confused me. He was when you look at the names of the four, the four leaders, that name wasn't there, but then it was there. I mean,
he gave that was his self-title. Oh, you can call me this.
Yeah.
The arrogance of this person, and then the arrogance of him doing what he did to the Jewish community. Like, just, I'm going to, because he wanted them, and was it Hebrew? He wanted them to go, to completely do away with their religion. and join his religion, whatever. I just forgot if it was Hebrew or he didn't want them to be Jewish. And so he tried to, I'm going to desecrate this. I'm going to, the pig. And then he kept the blood. And it was like, it was very, but it was such an in your face thing. And that's what, and obviously I would think that because this was a world, Alexander the Great was a great conqueror. He was known for being swift and being quick. And, and he talks about, how he was known for his speed of conquering. And then he had these 4 generals that he leaves everything to, or however that goes. And then here comes Antiochus. So I would imagine that gained a lot of attention because Alexander the Great, we still talk about him to this day, how great of a conqueror he was. So yeah, I would imagine that back then they would know him too.
So then did the Romans come after this guy?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
So he was one of the 4, one of the 4 under the Greeks, and then the Romans came.
Then the Romans came. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So why don't we read some of what he's got? Because I noticed that he kind of jumped around. We just started 8:37.
Oh, I'm
8, 9. I just want to make sure, but we don't even get to. I think verse 27 is the last one, and we talk about Ezra. Okay, that's all right. So, okay, who would like to go first? Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I can go.
Steve?
I can go first.
Okay.
If you like. Okay, now we're starting at 1, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
The number 1, the first question, yes.
Describe the first part of the vision that was given to Daniel. See Daniel 8:3-7. I looked up, and there before me was a ram with 2 horns standing beside the river. The 2 horns were long, but one was longer than the other, and the longer one came up last. I watched the ram charging westward and northward and southward. No beast could stand against him. Neither was there any who could rescue out of his hand. He did as he pleased and magnified himself. As I was considering this, suddenly a goat came from the west, crossing the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a prominent horn between his eyes. He came to the ram with 2 horns, and the one that I had seen standing beside the river, and he charged him with the fury of his power. I saw him approach the ram, and as he was enraged against him, he struck the ram and broke his 2 horns, and the ram had no strength to stand against him. The goat threw him down to the ground and trampled upon him, and there was none who was able to deliver the ram out of his hand. And then Richmond comments, Daniel first sees a ram with 2 horns, representing the empire of the Medes and the Persians. The ram charges to the west, north, and south, depicting the conquest and expansion of the Persian Empire. Suddenly, Daniel sees a goat coming out of the west, representing Alexander the Great and the Greek Empire. The goat tramples upon the ram. The Greeks conquered the Persians and succeeded them as a new ruling power.
Just so similar to what we read last week.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly the same thing, only different animals.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
this is in a little more detail. From a standpoint of its symbolism.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's certainly laying it out well from a historical standpoint.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it, and I think that there's got to be a reason that God puts this in the Bible to make it to be specific,
Sure.
To me, I think, and I mean, there's a reason that the history, he puts it in there that way, because this is it's not just a vague where we can
It's
grab
really
human-
important. Yeah,
I think so.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Big emphasis, kind of.
Mhm.
Let me throw this out for your consideration. Okay. So if we were going to, Pam, if you started up and said, I'm going to add the book of Pam to the Bible. Okay. And I'm going to talk about the end days. And I'm going to write about Vladimir Putin and, Igor Zelensky, all these types of people and so forth. And Zelensky's going to be the rattlesnake Putin's going to be the rattlesnake and Zelensky's going to be the whatever, the roadrunner,
The hawk.
the hawk or whatever, But you would write about these things. You might even write that way. But the thing is that you would be writing about things that people understood.
Yes, yes, I hear you. Uh-huh.
So the thing is that, the writers of this wanted to have maximum impact on their audience. So the thing is, they're going to write it in a, we may have to, really wrestle with it and try to interpret it and so forth. But a person, a educator, semi-educated person in that era, 150 years before Christ, would have said, "Oh yeah,"
Would really understand all of that. Yeah.
They would really understand that,
Mhm.
and the thing is that, you write a story for maximum impact, like God is always going to prevail. And so that's my thoughts, that in the end time, no matter what end time it's going to be, no whatever end time we're looking at, and so God is going to prevail. But you're going to write that couched in terms or in a setting that people of that era will understand. Whereas a book of Pam, maybe, I had a bad day on the freeway,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm being facetious there, but the thing is that it's going to be in terms of
What's important to us now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how we would understand it.
Yeah, right.
Now what the thing is too is that I heard a comment yesterday about how things are written now in 122 characters. If it's too long, people won't even read it. So you'd have a hard time writing a book of the Bible. It might be 2 or 3 sentences, Pam. So
Yeah.
That's about the attention span of most readers when they're on Twitter, So it might be a short book. Okay.
Okay. And you're saying that for our consideration. So I'm trying to understand. So they wrote it in that time for them to understand? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
thing is, these things would have transpired. There would have been already, there was no modern communications or anything like that, but word would have got around about all these things happening, and if you were writing at that time or shortly after that time, people would really understood. Oh yeah. Oh man, I heard about that. Wow. This really shows that God comes through. This is an example.
Right.
God comes through.
Yes.
And really, he did, because if you look at, you guys got a lot far better references than I do. But this Judas Maccabeus, he was the one that rebelled against Antiochus and took the kingdom back. And so, that would have been greatly celebration. In fact, the book of Maccabees in the Bible talks all about that.
Ooh, maybe that's the next book we read.
Maybe that's next.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm liking these books.
And that's like the last I think there's 2 Maccabees 1 and Maccabees 2. I can't be sure, but that's the last books in the Bible. But those guys were heroes. God was on their side, in taking back the kingdom, so people would have, this would have been celebrated, and, people would have known about this, it would have been a great thing. God's triumphs, this is a vision of God triumphing again,
Sure. And again, Daniel is a book that reveals God's unfolding plan for the ages.
Exactly.
The ages.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking that this book specifically is for our time and people 1,000 years from now.
Sure.
To me, because we're part of, they've all experienced this part.
Yeah,
We're going to experience the ugly part, the
Yeah.
ugly part.
yeah.
And we're still waiting. And yeah, I'm hoping that we get to, does he talk about the 2,300 days?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is also very interesting. So, okay. Would you like to read the next one, Pam?
Sure.
Okay.
What does Daniel now see transpiring in his vision? See Daniel 8:8-9. Then the goat greatly magnified himself, but when he had become strong, the large horn was broken. In its place, there came up 4 prominent horns facing outward, the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them, there came a little horn that grew to become very great, exerting its power toward the south and toward the east and toward the glorious land. After the goat had become prominent, his horn is broken. This is depicting the sudden death of Alexander. In place of the one prominent horn, there appear 4 lesser horns after Alexander's death. His empire was divided among 4 of his generals. Daniel's attention is now focused on one of those horns, a little horn that exerts its power toward the south, the east, and the glorious land, that is Israel. This little horn is representing Antiochus
Epiphanes.
Thank you, who became ruler over the Syrian portion of Alexander's former empire.
Right. Which we've been talking about.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Love Me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So number 3, what does a little horn do? See Daniel 8:10-11. It grew great, even reaching the host of heaven. Some of the host and of the stars it threw to the ground and trampled upon them. Indeed, it magnified itself, even against the prince of the host. It took away the daily sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. The little horn becomes great, even reaching the host of heaven. He threw some of the stars to the ground and trampled upon them. Here is a reference to Antioch's arrogance as he persecuted the people of God. Verse 11 describes in greater detail his blasphemous defiance of God, who is referred to as the prince of the host, and his efforts to eradicate the religion of Israel. Yeah, almost, foretelling, that's the scary part.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine that.
What I'm sorry, what can't you imagine?
Just having to be a witness under this ruler.
Sure.
I mean, he's
definitely.
known to have persecuted over 100,000 Jews back then. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these guys were just horrible killers, I think. I mean, just horrible human beings.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the idea was to keep the kingdom intact.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever means it took, they did it, and they didn't ask questions.
Power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't realize we went to. Okay. Any comments on that? Did you want?
Here it says the prince of the host. Yeah, and there's in what I was looking through in my commentary, they talked about there's references to angels. This was one of the first references where an angel Gabriel came through and helped interpret the dream for Daniel, and they said that's one of the first instances in the Bible where an angel comes down and does the interpretation. But the prince of the host, I tried to keep track of that because they talk about the saints. Okay, the people, the religious people, and then they talk about. Remember, the last one was what was they oh my gosh, what was the name of the guy? He was called he was called Ancient One.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's called
Yeah.
the Ancient.
Yeah.
Now he's
Now
called.
he's called the Prince of the Host.
Okay, so I'm just trying to kind of like keep track of all that, but it's interesting, what he's referring to, but he's referring to God there. And I think where, as we get a little bit further into it, is God the one that's going to set things in place. It's going to make things right in the end. So that's why I'm just trying to keep track of the names, as we
Yeah.
move forward. But he uses Prince of the, so rather than the Ancient One, it's the Prince of the Host here. It's a different, different way of saying God.
Sure.
Okay, but now I got to ask you guys something, because I was studying this stuff and I got really a little bit confused. Did God send this maniac to punish the Jews for not being what they should be?
Funny you should ask. Funny you should ask. Because we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in number 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Now he's saying here in number 5, and I said, wow, this seems a little I said, Richmond, this seems a little out of place here. He says, what has happened to us as a result of our evil deeds and our great, he's quoting Ezra there. But I looked up Ezra. And
Right.
I looked up the and Ezra is talking. Ezra talks about it's the history of the return. It's not Isaiah, which is the commentary, a spiritual commentary on the return of the Jews from Babylon. But Ezra is supposed to be the historical account. And I looked at the dates there, and Ezra, the Ezra he's talking about here, he's talking about the Jews in the year right around the year 400 BCE, or maybe 538 BCE. I didn't write the dates down. I could.
But before this?
That was before, way before this. And the thing is, he was talking there about, how the Jews were not behaving as they should. Not behaving as they should. And remember, in Isaiah, we went through all this. They were picking up all kinds of strange means of worship from the Babylonians, and they were doing all kinds of things, and they were not treating one another fairly and so forth. So they were not a really harmonious, or how to say, homogeneously good crowd. They had their faults. And what Ezra is doing, he's saying, okay, this is happening because of that. But the thing is, this is happening because of that, like 300 years earlier. I can read you what he says. That sounds strange to me. Where's Ezra? Come on. Oh, it's way in the front of the Bible here. Okay, Ezra. Yeah, what was the quotation he makes there? Ezra 9, 13.
13 to 14.
So I'll read it here. Okay, I'm gonna start reading. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read this whole passage in here, so that way you'll get a little idea of the context. Okay. Now this I'm going to start at 5 through 14. We got time, I think. It won't take long. Oh my God, I am too ashamed and embarrassed to lift my face to you, my God, for our iniquities have risen higher than our heads, and our guilt is mounted up to the heavens. From the days of our ancestors to this day, we have been in deep guilt, and for our iniquities, our kings and our priests have been handed over to the kings of the lands, to the sword, to the captivity, to plundering, and to utter shame, as is now the case. But now for a brief moment, favor has been shown by the Lord our God, who has left us as a remnant. That's the remnant of people that come out of Babylon, and given us a stake in this holy place, in order that he may brighten our eyes and grant us a little sustenance in our slavery. For we are slaves, yet our God has not forsaken us in our slavery, but has extended to us his steadfast love before the kings of Persia, Cyrus, to give us a new life and set us up in the house of God, to repair his ruins and to give us a wall in Judea, in Jerusalem. And now our God, what shall we say after this? For okay, now they're starting to say, we've got, we're not living up to our charge here. They're saying, and now, O God, what shall we say after this? For we have forsaken your commandments, which you commanded by the servants of the prophets, saying, the land that you are entering to possess is a land unclean, with pollutions of the people of the lands, with their abominations. They have filled it from end to end with their uncleanliness. Therefore, do not give your daughters to their sons, neither take their daughters for your sons, and never seek their peace or prosperity, so that you may be strong and eat the good of the land and leave it for the inheritance for your children forever. After that has come upon us for our evil days and for our great guilt, seeing that you, O God, have punished us less than our iniquities deserved, and have given us such a remnant as this. So you've punished us, but less than what we really deserve. And we're still here. You've been good to us. You punished us, but we're still okay. We're still the remnant. And then it goes on to say, shall we break your commandments, God, and again and intermarry with the peoples who practice these abominations? Would you not be angry with us until you destroy us without remnant or survivor? O Lord God of Israel, you are just, but we have escaped as a remnant, as is now the case. Here we are before you in our guilt, though no one can face you because of this. So they're talking about guilt and iniquities and intermarrying and taking on, the traditions and gods of the land and all this type of thing. But this goes back to, I'm trying to find where the year that these things happened in, but that was far earlier than the time that we're dealing with Antiochus. So I think that Ritzman's a little off the base here. Okay. He's not here to argue with me. Well, it doesn't really make any difference, but I think he's a little off the base there. I don't think there's any guilt to be imputed upon or laid upon the Jews of that era. They were suffering because of the Antiochus's suppression of their religion. Mm-hmm. So I don't get any idea about they're suffering because of being guilty of sin. I just don't get that.
Right. I mean, when we hear about the chosen people, I guess we can look at that in many ways, right? Does he choose them as the Jobs of the day, where he's got, God is in control. That's the one thing about all of this, is that
right.
He's in control, and we got to put our faith in him. And it seems like Jewish people are the ones who constantly suffer at the hands of tyrants. And granted, there's a lot of other, obviously, that have done that as well. The Germans, not the Germans, the Russians and things like that. But because that question, I immediately went to Judas. Did Jesus send, or did God send Judas so that he would be, so that Jesus would be betrayed, so that he would die on the cross? Like, that's, Jesus had to get on that cross. How is he going to get on that cross?
Yeah.
How is he going to be the person who holds all our transgressions for the world to come? He got on there for you. He got on there for me. Back then we didn't know that, but that's what he did. But how is he going to be able to do that? The only way to do that was for someone to portray Jesus.
Right.
So the same thing with this, what is the purpose of Antiochus? Is he the precursor to, and obviously we choose the Jewish people again. They were in the desert for 40 years. I mean, it just never ends.
Yeah, right.
It just never ends for these guys, these poor people.
Yeah.
And then you've got Hitler who again, same thing, like 6 million, like it's just crazy. But what happens? They are the most resilient people on the planet.
Yeah.
They are so freaking resilient. It just amazes me. So I'm not sure where, it's a great question. Did he bring him down here? He didn't make him evil, but he definitely knew that he was going to do what he was going to do. But also serving the purpose of, this is the precursor of what's going to come, just a snapshot, and you better be ready.
Sure.
You better be ready. Yeah. You and me, because this is already
back you up a little bit. I went on to Wikipedia and I went on chapter 8, Daniel, and I try to pick out things that may be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As in chapter 8, the course of history, they say, and this is their interpretation. In chapter 8, the course of history is predetermined, and Antiochus' fourth Epiphanes is merely playing a role in the unwinding of God's plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And I really love us to talk about the 2300 days. I don't have the Bible right in front of me. If you wanted to read that about.
We can do that. Sure.
But isn't all that's so hard, isn't it?
What's
2300 days?
No, that
yeah.
Terrible man, there was a purpose in all that.
Yes.
You have to ask why.
Hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
That's hard stuff.
It is hard stuff. If you're the ones that are suffering there.
Yeah.
Right. And but he also but here again, he cleans up the altar. He look at what you're trying to do. You're trying to stomp me out. Right. God out. You're not going to stomp me out, no matter what.
Right.
And you know what I remember reading too, is I think it was about this guy, that Antiochus, that he died like a natural death, like God had him die. It wasn't like he got killed by somebody. It was God's hand that, took him out.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I read that in one of the, one of the commentaries. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
I'm going to find that right now.
Almost like he was a messenger, which I can't.
Yeah. Well, he was just playing his role, like Judas.
Playing his role.
Yeah. Playing his role.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so it's actually in Maccabees too.
Oh, cool.
So Jewish sources gave credit for Antiochus' death to his earlier impiety at the Temple of Jerusalem. According to 2 Maccabees, he died from divinely inflicted disease. But the all-seeing Lord, the God of Israel, struck him with an incurable and invisible blow.
Very good.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I know.
And you were right.
Well, I read it somewhere. I get so confused. I'm reading this. That's hard for me to understand.
Yeah. I mean, this can be confusing, and the thing is, this is just a short little chapter.
I know.
Yeah. Wow. I mean,
you really wonder why nobody's joining us.
I always hope like someone else.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But it is so fascinating.
It is. I love it. I just love it. I love it. So I am so glad that we did Daniel. I never thought I would ever enjoy the Old Testament. I really didn't. I just I know. Let's talk about Paul. But no,
this is hot stuff here.
Right, but yeah. My dear friend there, Dale, he had plans for us. So
yeah. Oh yeah. I'm just playing my role.
Right.
I really didn't bring this up. I'm just playing my role.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so would you like, because I have some insight into that 2,300 days, which I thought was really interesting. I want
That's
to share
cool.
with
Let's
you
read
guys.
it. Let's read it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
So
hear it.
who wants to read that? Because I don't have the Bible in front of me to read that part about,
Oh,
I'm not
I don't
sure what
either.
verse it's in.
Okay. So I've got it here right in front of me.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, good.
So, but I need to know where to start. Man,
Wherever you want to start.
no, I might as well. Okay, I'll tell you what, you know what I'm going to do? Wait a minute. Oh, okay, I see where it is here. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to start at 10 here.
Okay.
Okay. It grew as high as the host of heaven and threw down the earth to the earth, some of the hosts of the stars, and trampled on them, even against the prince of the host. The prince of the host, there we are. It acted arrogantly. It took, and they're talking here about the ram, Antiochus, and took the regular burnt offering away from him and overthrew the place of his sanctuary. Okay, they're talking about Antiochus there. Because of his of wickedness, the host was given over to it together with the regular burnt offering. It cast such truth to because of wickedness, the host was given over to it together with the regular burnt offering. It cast truth on the ground. And truth there means, I saw that. Truth? No, come on. It has to do with the Talmud, the Torah,
Mm-hmm.
the law. Okay, it cast truth on the ground. Okay, I lost my place here. And it kept prospering in what it did. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to the one that spoke, "For how long is this vision concerning the regular burnt offering, the transgression that makes desolate, and the giving over of the sanctuary and host to be trampled?" And he answered him, "For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary shall be restored to its rightful state."
Right. So the interesting thing is, people took that back in 1844. People took that literally.
Oh,
So
wow.
that because we're not sure, we 200. What are days to God? I mean, we don't know,
Yeah.
but was it mornings and evenings? Was it half those days? Like nobody knew. But something known as the Great Disappointment, by William Miller. He was a Baptist preacher who proclaimed that Jesus Christ would return to earth by 1844, which is called the Second Advent. His study of the Daniel 8 prophecy during the Second Great Awakening led him to conclude that Daniel's cleansing of the sanctuary was cleansing the world from sin when Christ would come. And he and many others prepared. I mean, people who followed this preacher, they sold their possessions. I mean, they were going. And when they thought he was coming on October 22nd, 1844.
Wow.
And when Jesus did not appear, Miller and his followers were disappointed. And what birthed out of that was the Jehovah's Witness and the Seventh-day Adventists.
Wow.
How interesting.
Wow.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
These events paved the way for the Adventists who formed the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They contended that what had happened on October 22nd was not Jesus' return, as Miller had thought, but the start of Jesus' final work of atonement, the cleansing in the heavenly sanctuary leading up to the second coming. So yeah, that's where Jehovah's Witness came, because they thought October 22nd, which is kind of weird because my dad was born on October 23rd. I don't know, just saying. That's some kind of, and he's a diehard Baptist. So yeah, it's really my real father. So yeah, very interesting. But yeah, I never thought about how the Jehovah's Witness became Jehovah's Witness, but now that makes sense to me. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we really took it that literally, that,
Sure.
that he's coming.
Sure.
And they went on these hilltops and they were waiting, and nothing came.
Yeah.
Nothing came. So yeah, they took this very, so, but we don't know when he's coming. So what was, oh, I already talked about that. Yeah. Okay. So there's 4 takeaways, but I'll end with those 4 takeaways because I know we've got 2 more questions, right? Is there 2 more questions?
Well, I think I
You pretty much did it, right?
I pretty much did 5.
Okay.
Because we went all the way through Ezra.
Yeah, we did.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll just do 4 as we wrap it
Okay.
up. So according
Yeah.
to verse 12, why will this villain, Antiochus Epiphanes, be permitted to perpetuate his evil work against the nation of Israel? On account of transgression, the host was given over to the horn along with the daily sacrifice. It flung truth to the ground, and it did as it pleased and succeeded. Verse 12 indicates that the devastation and desecration perpetuated by this villain, known as the little horn, was the consequence of the transgressions of Israel. On account of transgression, the host, the community of the people of God, was given over to the horn, along with the daily sacrifice. The Lord would use this evil and blasphemous king in his sovereign hand as his instrument to inflict judgment upon his people for their apostasy.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's almost like they were.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. I think that's a Richmond conclusion.
Okay.
Because we just knew Ezra,
Right.
These people, he was talking to the people that 400 years earlier, 538. That's, I guess, when Cyrus came or wait a minute, I forget I can't remember. There was 583 or something like that, but in the 500 BCs, and we're talking about here at 163 BC. So the thing is that I think that Richmond is reading something into this. He's looking at the example in Ezra, of the people being, how should I say, straying. They were a God-given remnant. They were a holy remnant that God had left after all this hardship, and they were not living up to their duty, and not being true to their religion, and as a result, God had punished them. But he had left this remnant out of his love. So it's not
And you're
not the
right.
first
And
time I've
again,
disagreed with the guy.
yeah, because it's almost like, did God send down Hitler,
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. I can't believe that.
and
My
I
God
just
wouldn't do
can't.
that.
I just can't. Mm-mm.
No. I don't. I really don't get that one. But the people at Ezra's time, they were feeling guilty. They were feeling guilty, but they were saying, "Well, we got through this. We're just a little remnant, and here we are. Are we going to do this again? Are we going to intermarry? Are we going to do this all that kind of stuff again? No. Let's clean up our act and go forward.
Right. Are we learning? What did we learn from all of this? Yes. So here were the 4 takeaways that I was told about.
Okay.
So number 1, the fact of the fulfilled prophecy is an amazing testimony to the divine source of the Bible. So, he's giving us this information, the fact of what took place, Daniel's vision, hundreds of years before it happened, lets us know that the Bible is real, that it's real.
Sure.
Number 2, God warns us about the last days, the last day of God warns us about a last days world ruler. He's just a precursor, because the one who comes, they're going to believe him. The world is going to believe this person that's coming.
Right.
And he's going to attack those of us who believe in God. And people are going to be okay with that. And they're going to And that's the part where we already have the armor of God. So we're safe, if it's during our time or, when he lifts us from the dead. And then number 3, let your heart ache for the pain of the lost world. It's because we've been, we are the chosen. We do believe that he died on the cross for our sins. And there's going to be those people that I will ache that they don't get it.
Yeah.
They won't get
yeah,
it. They won't
yeah.
they won't listen to the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to let us ache for that. And
Yeah.
number 4, you can be ready for the Jesus of the second coming by surrendering to the Jesus of the first coming. I was like, oh. So that's part of this, is that he's preparing us, since we have already believed the Jesus first coming, we're going to be okay for the second coming.
Sure.
He's given us so many opportunities to get on board that God is in control. He is running the show.
Right.
And that's just,
Yeah.
and sometimes I don't know how that train runs. I don't understand it. Isn't there an easier, softer way to do this? But we're humans and we're stubborn and we're,
But we continue to have to remind ourselves that God is in control. And by reading this, by learning about this, by looking at from a spiritual and historical basis, we say, okay, yes, he is in control.
yes. And these things came true.
There's examples of that. So this is what this does. This is supposed to increase our faith. Now, when the time comes, I'm afraid I can't even face a operated on foot. I said, I can't even handle that. I don't know how I'm going to handle it, 10 times. It's going to be really tough.
Right.
But I'm, but the thing is, I really do think, we need to remind ourselves that, this at some point in time is going to occur. Things are not going to be the same anymore. And God's will is going to be done. So these are things that we have to continue to remind ourselves. Why pay attention to this? Because God's working his way through the world. He's
right.
He's working his will. As we may not see it, but he is. That's for sure.
Right. Well.
So, but I do think, how many chapters are in Daniel?
I thought it was 11, but I heard it was, is it 12? I think it's,
Not quite sure.
And you have the Bible in front of you, right? Do you have the Bible?
Oh
in
yeah,
front of you?
doggone it, Dale, you dumb fool. 10, 9, 10, 11, 12.
He only goes to 11 though.
Oh, is that right? Seriously?
That's what I saw.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the thing is, 12 is so short.
Okay.
Oh yeah, 12 is so short. The thing is if we had to, from a time standpoint, just lump 11 and 12 together.
Okay, we'll just do that then. But I don't even think he didn't even do oh yes, he did. Yes, he did. 11:36 to 12:13. Okay, so it's
okay. So he's put it all, he lumps it together anyhow.
right. He does.
Okay, that's good. That's good. We're good.
Okay, so I didn't even see that. I thought, what is he doing? What's happening now? So
it's only 13 verses.
Yeah, exactly. So I see that now. So, okay, so I will let Daniel 9, 1 through 27 next Tuesday. So
Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds really good.
okay, hey, thank you. I hope. This was. Yeah, there's a lot here, and I'm not as intimidated by it anymore.
No, not at all. And you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something. And I'll say it in front of Pam, because you've already talked about considering, being a deacon.
Deacon, yeah.
Mhm.
I think that you are a candidate for a lay, I don't know what they call it, lay preacher. I think there is a position in the Episcopal Church, a lay preacher. And I just keep thinking, I said, wow, I mean, you've got such a great story in your life and everything else. And the thing is now, all these, I don't think if somebody gave you, Joanna, if somebody gave you the 3 lessons for the word, you would be able to pick out something in those 3 lessons, that some takeaways that you could, that you could give to a congregation. I just think you really have a good talent for that. And we've already seen your testimony.
No, I think you do too. I
thank
totally
you.
agree.
Yeah.
Oh my
Totally.
goodness.
Yeah.
Well, what's the difference between a deacon and a lay preacher?
Well, I'm gonna have to look that up. I've been thinking about that, but I think the thing is, they just preach. I don't think that they get involved in all the other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then that's
See, and then that's what you should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Because your life is such it weaves such a wonderful
Oh,
story.
thank you. That's so sweet.
Yeah. No, seriously.
Okay, well, I like that.
Yeah.
Is that
Check it out.
a lay Eucharistic minister? Is that different?
That's the one that handles the things at the altar. Where there's a
Altar. Yeah. Never
So a
mind.
lay
Yeah.
preacher. Okay,
I just
I'm gonna
knew
look it up.
the
You might even,
words.
if you've been talking to Jenny, you might want to ask her about that. I mean,
I'm definitely gonna look it up. So my daughter is sending me texts. There's something wrong with her phone today, so she's
Uh-oh.
getting all concerned. So lay preacher.
I'm almost positive there's something in on that, something like that, some position.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna Episcopal Church. Lay positions, lay preacher in the Episcopal Church. Okay. Well, I'll look it up, find
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
very sweet.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I had thought about that. I said, wow, if anybody's qualified, it's you, I mean, seriously. And now you know so much about the Bible, nothing would faze you.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And it would be just where your gifts are,
Yeah.
without being burdened down with,
The administrative.
yeah, right.
Yeah. I just think that being a deacon, it's a long road to get there. And the thing
Right.
is, then you've got a lot of responsibilities,
Right. And I just want to,
think
Okay.
that you get a lot of things, I won't want to say dumped on you, but you would
Yeah.
have to assume a lot of responsibilities that
You could do, but that's not where your talent is.
no.
It's
I
not where your
appreciate that.
gifts are.
Right.
that-
I mean, it
you're
might be
ab-
there as well.
You
but-
are absolutely. No,
but,
I know you are 100%. So I appreciate that. I just never knew that, I never knew that was even a position actually. So I've only known deacons and priests. I've never known a lay preacher before. I've never even heard of that.
I'm pretty sure there's a certification. I'm
Yeah, there's something there. So, okay.
So
Yeah,
you've got your homework, Joanna.
I
You
do.
gotta look that up. We want to hear
do.
next Tuesday what you found out.
yeah, exactly. You got a rooting section right here.
Yay.